Hello, Mid-Atlantic Regional Archives Conference. Uh, this presentation is called The Speculative, Towards a Critical and Embodied Archive. It's being presented today by myself, Claire Mooney, and Avery Jonas. Today, we will be discussing the hindrances and possibilities of the archive. Specifically, we are considering the archive not simply as a static repository of data and materials, but as an active process of rigorous and responsible creativity. To begin our research, we considered existing discussions of critical archiving. The summer 2019 issue of the Journal of Colonialism and Colonial History consisted entirely of articles presenting, quote, a critical approach to working with Indigenous Australian communities in the archive. Part of the impetus for this issue was the belief that conversations responding to new and interdisciplinary directions in archival theory and research were mostly occurring in silos. We agree that many of these conversations have been siloed and that critical archival discussions are in conversation with work being done in other humanist disciplines and community work. Two scholars who are exemplary in articulating how the archive works as a tool for hegemonic powers are Akil Membe, who understands the archive as a tool used by the state to destroy time and memory in order to rebuild histories that are in the state's image, and Jessica Marie Johnson, who analyzes the cruel reality that most quote unquote legitimized data on the transatlantic slave trade was produced and is preserved by systems which allowed this enslavement. A popular methodology for speaking back to the archive and its gaps comes from theorist Saidiya Hartman, who, in her book, Lose Your Mother, A Journey Along the Transatlantic Slave Route, coined the term critical fabulation, a process combining archival research with fictional narrative. Critical fabulation fills in the gaps left behind in the archive of transatlantic slavery to produce greater agency and dignity to the archive's maligned subjects. We also see examples of Black filmmakers speaking back to and producing new archives. In Cheryl Dunye's film, The Watermelon Woman, Dunye critically fabulates an archive of a queer Black film star into existence. In Arthur Jafa's Love is the message is death, Jafa compiles found footage and clips of popular culture to, quote, describe this country back to itself. And finally, in Jatovia Gary's Duvernay document, the filmmaker integrates archival footage and direct cinema to examine Black women's bodily autonomy.
Black quantum futurism duo Kamei Ayewa and Rashida Phillips point out that, open quote, Black womanist temporalities emphasize matrilineal or matricurvature timelines that are feminine and communally generated, and in which personal, familial, and communal spacetimes are enmeshed. These communally generated nonlinear temporalities allow the futures to emerge into the past by way of dreams, omens, prophecies, and symbols. The past remains a space of open possibility and speculation, and active revision by matrilineal descendants of multiple generations of people, end quote. The work of Black quantum futurism enables us to think of time as nonlinear, and in turn not to think of the archive as a semblance of the past, but rather memory that we can manipulate into an ideal futurity, and vice versa. This disregard for linear time within the archive is evident in the more post-custodial and communally generated projects, such as Black Archives. Black Archives was founded in 2015 by Renata Schalise, and as described on its site, through an evolving visual exploration, provides a dynamic accessibility to Black past, present, and future. Phillips notes in her article in The Funambulist, the nowness of Black chronopolitical imaginaries in the Afro-Retrofuture, open quote, civil rights and Black liberation movements have always needed to reappropriate notions of time and temporality that hack dominant Western linear time. These movements must steal back time in order to create visions of the future for marginalized people who are future, end quote. It is important to note that the temporary archive for Black folks must be constitutive of the multiplicity of our experiences in order to provide that accessibility to those who are often kept out of the vision of futurity. This is the speculative and the archive, hand in hand, one and the same. Thank you.